Hi, everybody. This is Miriam of Freelance and Marketing, and I'm live today again uh, because I published a new post on my blog and I wanted to talk about it as I believe it's an interesting topic and it pertains to a lot of you, especially those of you who are bloggers, who have websites, uh, any one of you who ever gathers any kind of data from your visitors, viewers, then this actually pertains to you also. So the blog post I published on my website is called GDPR for bloggers, the exact steps to finally comply, basically. And what I'm going to concentrate in today's life is basically the way you have to approach your opt-ins. Right. So when you have a website and you want to gather some information from your viewer, you have opt-in forms that you collect emails or names in order to add those people to your email list. So that needs to be GDPR compliant. And today, basically, that's what this live segment is going to concentrate on. Before I forget, I'm live today, but I'm also going to be live tomorrow on Elna Kane's Mom to Mompreneur Facebook group. If you're part of that group or if you want to join that awesome, amazing, supportive group, be my guest. I will be live there tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic is going to be similar to today's topic, GDPR, except tomorrow I'm going to cover a lot more as far as GDPR requirements and compliance than I do today. As I said, today it's mainly about your opt-ins and being able to get consent from your viewers. So let's see. I did put the link to my blog post there in the description. On my screen, it's right next to the video screen, but it might be below the screen. If you look in a description bar, you'll see that I put two links for you. So one of them is my cookie policy prepared by me that you can download for free. Now, this is a cookie policy that I was offering for sale in my template shop, but I made it free for limited time only, and you can download it, you can customize it and put it up on your website. Another small element of GDPR compliance that you can do and get it out of the way. And the other link that I have on there is the link that takes you to my blog post that I published yesterday. And obviously, I'm not going to talk about every single thing that's on my post right now, but it's there for you if you want to read the whole thing and see some visual examples and images and videos. Okay, I think I'm gonna start. If any one of you joins me halfway, I'll just do a quick introduction again, or you can watch the replay. So opt-in forms, right? What are they? So it's that form that you have on your website. They can be either pop-ups, they can be inline, after post, before post, those informational bars at the top or on the footer of your website. So they can take many different shapes. And the entire purpose of an opt-in form is to get the viewers, to get the visitors information, email address always. And depending how much information you want to gather, you can either get their full name, you can get their first name or no name at all. You can even ask for a phone number or any other relevant area information that you need for your business purposes. Now, because by doing this, you're gathering information, you have to be compliant with GDPR laws. Now, what is the GDPR law? If you're a blogger, chances are you've heard about GDPR many, many times because you cannot start blogging without hearing about it, right? What GDPR stands for General Data Protection. General Data Protection Regulation, and it went in effect in May 25th, I want to say, of 2017. It's the most major privacy policy overhaul, like new law, new rule that came out. And the main purpose of GDPR is to protect data, is to protect sensitive information that you gather from people. Now, there are several pillars to GDPR that I'm not going to go into right now because, as I said, I want to keep today's segment short and kind of only on the opt-ins. But know this, that as far as opt-ins are concerned, basically what GDPR mandates you as a blogger or as a website owner to do is when you gather information, you cannot add those people to your email list for marketing or promotional purposes unless you have that person's specific, expressed, explicit, right, and unambiguous consent. Now, those are a lot of adjectives that I've used. The regulation might not use all of them, but that is the goal of the regulation. So whenever you add someone to your email list, you have to be 100% sure that that person actually gave you the consent, allowed you to add them to your email list. So there are a few ways of complying with this. Number one is kind of do what many bloggers used to do or website owners used to do a few years ago, where you would just put join my newsletter for, let's say, updates or interesting posts or great content, blah, blah. But basically, you were asking people to join your newsletter. Now, that in and of itself is very clear. If a person puts their email address, decides to join your newsletter, they know that they're going to be getting emails because you're telling them to, join your newsletter, obviously. So there is no issues with GDPR consent because the consent is explicit since your viewer or reader already gave you the consent by signing in the first place. Now, what happened a few years after that, okay, more like now, the current times, the way we add people to our email list, we do lead magnets, right? Freebies. In other words, you create something that your specific target audience wants, craves, needs, right? Something that is very attractive for them. And you post it on your website, you post it on your social media, and obviously you connect an opt-in form to it so that when they try to get this free resource, it can be anything, like literally an ebook, a guide, a checklist, a video, email templates, right? Anything at all, as long as your target audience finds value in it, you can offer that as a lead magnet. And the name kind of tells you what it is already. So as soon as they try to download it, they have to put their email address and name, again, optional, and they would have automatically been added to your email list. This is an amazing way of building your email list. A lot of bloggers, a lot of website owners have done this very successfully, and they were able to build up their email list relatively faster than if you just put join my newsletter type of a opt-in on your site. But with GDPR changes, now, what that means for email list building purposes, you cannot add the people who opt in to get your freebie to your email list anymore. You need to get consent from those people to send them further emails. Now, under GDPR, when somebody opts in, right, to get your freebie, you're allowed to send them an email that contains the freebie itself. So if somebody opts in to get the freebie from me, I can send them an email and I will be completely within my rights. I will not be violating any GDPR laws or regulations if I were to send them an email after they signed up, pretty much immediately after they signed up, and thank them for signing up. And I said, here you go. This is the link where you can download your freebie. Now, that I'm allowed to do. Maybe, and this is a little bit of a vaguer area, like ambiguous area, maybe you could even do a follow-up for that freebie, like send an email a day or two later, but only strictly keeping it about the freebie itself, and just follow up like, hey, so and so, like, you downloaded my freebie a couple of days ago. I just wanted to check in with you and see if everything worked out. Were you able to get access to it? Did you like it? Can I help you with anything else, right? So those two emails you're allowed to do. But once you send those two emails, you cannot contact those people again. You cannot send them further emails. You cannot put them in your general email list to send them updates about your blog, or like if you're selling a product, or if you published a new blog post, you cannot do that, okay? Because that would be violating the GDPR laws. The way you would be able to do that is when that person was signing up for the freebie, you actually ask them for their consent and they gave it to you. Now, if you go on the second link that I put for you, the full blog post article, you would see some image examples and video examples of what I mean when I say consent. But you basically can ask them straight out on the opt-in form itself, like, hey, John, I see that you want to get this freebie. I also send emails about awesome like informational stuff that will help you grow or help you advance your career or whatever it is that you're talking about, right? Would you like me to send you emails in the future about helpful topics? Or, put it in your own words, not in so many words, obviously. This is for you to just understand the gist of it. And you can ask them, and if they say yes or click something or check something, right, then you have their consent. Then what you want to do is you want to connect your ESP, your email service provider, and somehow create a tag in it. So when somebody clicks to give you consent, you can automatically assign a tag to them that says maybe GDPR consent or consent given or consent yes, so that in your email list or in your email subscribers area, you would know that John gave you consent to add him to your email list. So then you would be able to send John emails in the future. But if John did not give you the consent on the form, then you cannot send John emails unless you convince John in another way. Now, just to talk about the methods of getting that consent aside from where you can put it. So there are some opt-ins that have GDPR compliance sort of built in after the GDPR like revolution, right? The changes went into effect. A lot of the opt-in companies that create those pop-ups and opt-ins, or even email service providers, they were able to update some things or add some elements, and they're advertising it as GDPR compliant. Now, I have to warn you about this to be careful, right? So I personally have a couple of different opt-in plugins. I use WordPress for my blog. I love it, but again, you got to be super careful with any CMS that you use. And those opt-ins have GDPR built in, but what that GDPR involves is a checkbox, right? So it's a small checkbox that if you say add this to my form, you get that checkbox on your form, and then you can most of the time customize the text that goes there. For example, most people put something like by clicking this box or by submitting this form, you agree to be added to my email list, or you agree to receive emails from me. And that means if the person clicks the checkbox and there's a check in it and they click submit, then they consented to be on your email list. True theoretically, but not always true in practice. Why? Because a lot of these opt-in plugins or softwares, okay, that have the checkmark built in, they didn't build it completely the correct way. That it kind of mandates your reader to click the checkbox. They cannot move forward unless they gave you the consent in the checkbox. In other words, that checkbox is not optional. If your reader wants to move forward, they want to sign up for your freebie, they're being forced to check that box in order to be able to click submit. And I'm not saying that every single plugin has this, but a lot of them do. I'm personally using two I love that have this defect in them. Like, it's not a defect. They tried their best to comply, but they didn't really take it all the way. So in order for that checkbox compliance to be an actual valid consent for GDPR purposes, that checkbox has to be made optional. If you're given that option on your element section of your plugin, great, then they did their job right. But if you don't have that option of making the checkbox optional and it's a requirement, you cannot do that. because once it's a requirement to move forward, you're kind of steamrolling your viewer to either give you consent or not get the freebie, and that's not flying with GDPR regulations. Okay, so if you have an awesome freebie that your reader wants, you have to give them access to it if they opt in for that, regardless whether they give you consent to be added to your email list or not. So here is a better way of trying to get that consent from your viewer, instead of just going with the regular checkbox and check it for yourself. If you have the option of making that checkbox optional, where the person does not have to check anything to move forward, then that's okay. But if that option does not exist, if you can't move forward and you can test it out for yourself, obviously, then you don't want to do that. A better way to get that consent would be to use a drop-down menu. And if you go on my blog post, I have a quick screen video where I show what I mean by the drop-down menu, but it's pretty self-explanatory anyways. You basically, once you have those fields like name or email, and then before you have the submit button or the download button, right, you're going to have a drop-down menu where you ask people, for example, your text can say, would you like me to send you further emails on more helpful content, right? That's just an example. And one of the options can be yes, add me to your email list, or yes, send me emails. And the other one is no, just give me the freebie, or no, I don't want to be added to your email list. In that case, your viewer has the option of voluntarily either deciding to be part of your email list or not. If they say yes, great. Again, arrange your ESP in a way that it speaks to your opt-in. And the second they click the yes, you tag them that they gave you consent. And equally true, make sure you have your ESP in place. When they do not give you the consent, you tag them as no consent, so that you have to either try to convince this person in another manner or delete them from your list. Okay. So drop-down is a great way. Another really good method of getting consent immediately on your opt-in form is to do it through radio buttons. Now, radio button kind of looks like a checkbox, but it's like two, almost like, I want to say, bullet options, right? And you can have more than one option. So one option is add me to your email list, and the second option would be no, I don't want to get emails, or just give me the freebie or whatnot, right? So again, in that case, your viewer, your reader has an option. They can voluntarily give you a consent or not, and again, apply the tags correctly. So that's one way of making sure that you have their consent. Now, what do you do when the opt-in forms or the plugins that you're using don't have the option of adding either the radio buttons or the drop down, right? Some plugins do not come with that much customization options. So in that case, what you can do to get consent from your viewer is to use something like a sandwich landing page, or that's what I call it, a sandwich page. The reason I call this is you have your opt-in page, right? It's a landing page where you have your offer or you have your freebie. And then as soon as they sign up, ideally you would be redirecting them to a thank you page where you're either going to give them access to the download immediately, or you're going to tell them hey, check your email and I'm going to send you the download link in your email, right? Whichever method you want to use, that's fine. But basically they opt in and then you redirect them to the thank you page. Now, a sandwich page would be an additional landing page that is between the opt-in and the thank you page, right? It's sandwiched between both. And you would basically be using this additional landing page sort of like a sales page to convince your reader to join your email list. And you can talk about the benefits of joining your email list, like why it's important, what kind of content you send usually, what are some benefits, that being on your email list will provide them, if you're going to support them, if you're going to provide tips. Basically, just sell them on the idea of joining your email list and have have two buttons because this is a sandwich page, right? You want to have two buttons on that page. So one will be a button or a link that they can click on to give you consent to add them to your email list. Right? Like click here if you want to be included in my email list before you download your freebie. And they'll click and track that click and add a tag in your ESP like consent given. Then you can redirect them to the thank you page. Or the other option would be no, I don't want to receive emails from you. Just take me to the download or just give me the freebie. In that case, again, you would apply a tag in your ESP that they did not give you consent, and you would redirect them to the original thank you page where you're telling them that they can either download immediately or you'll send them an email with the download link. So that's another way of getting consent. And a third method for getting consent would be to do it through the emails that you're going to send them. So remember, I told you in the beginning that you can send them an email for delivering the actual freebie and a follow-up, right? So what you can do is you can use those two emails that you can send under GDPR as an opportunity to convince them to be on your email list. For example, hey, here is your freebie. Thanks for signing up. Oh, by the way, I wanted to see if you would like to be included on my email list because I send like this kind of information every week or every month. I don't spam and this and that. Again, like talk about the benefits. And if they consent by clicking on a certain link, again, you're going to apply a tag. If they don't, they don't. But it's very important that once your reader definitively does not give you consent, and in this case, we already ran out of all the options to convince our reader, if they're still not giving you consent to be on your email list, then what you want to do is you want to make sure that once you deliver your freebie to this person, you delete them immediately from your list. You do not want to keep that person on your list because that's just asking for trouble, okay? So those are the ways that you can ask for and get consent from your readers during the time that you're delivering something for them in order for them to be on your email list. Now, there's a lot more that goes into GDPR compliance, but I just wanted to touch on these topics really quickly with you. And another thing, I'll take a couple of minutes to talk about double opt-ins also. I have noticed that this comes up a lot in many different Facebook groups, people asking if double opt-in is necessary for GDPR, if they need to have it in place. And there are some mixed responses, some correct, some not so correct. Anyways, what I wanted to tell you is this about the topic. Double opt-in is great. Double opt-in keeps your list clean. It makes sure less spam accounts get on your email list because they have to go and confirm. It's an additional steps that spam accounts might not want to take. It's not going to do the job 100%, but you have better chances with it than without it for keeping your email list clean. But the way that most people use double opt-in these days is not GDPR compliant. And I'll tell you which one is not GDPR compliant. So generally, and comment below if this is not how you're using it. And I'll be happy to tell you if the way you're using it is compliant or not, or agree with me if this is how you're using it. So most people, the way they use double opt-in is they offer something like a freebie or a lead magnet for somebody to opt into, right? So when the person opts into that, you take them to a thank you page where you tell them, thanks for subscribing, like check your email for further instructions. And then you send an email, right? And in that email, you say, thank you so much for subscribing, or thank you so much for wanting to download this freebie. Click on this link here to confirm your subscription so that you can download this awesome whatever, like freebie. Now, notice that the reader did not give you consent anywhere on the opt-in form, right? If you ask for consent before sending that confirmation email, and if your reader actually gives you that consent and by one of the methods that I already covered, then great, you're good, you're complying. But if you didn't ask for consent, or if you did ask, your reader did not give you consent explicitly, specifically, and unambiguously, right? Then when you send that letter, email, asking them to confirm to get the download link or to get the whatever it is that you're gonna send them, again, you're forcing them to confirm. In other words, to give you consent, even though they don't want to give you consent, just to receive that thing you're gonna send them. So if that's how you're using your double opt-in, that's not compliant. Okay, if you have consent in the first place and then you ask them to confirm, that's great, that's compliant. But any other method of double opt-ins is not compliant. So just the fact of having a double opt-in does not mean that your viewer or reader actually consented, because that consent, even though in your ESP it's going to say confirmed, right? When they click, you're probably tagging them as confirmed or consented, however it is that you're doing your tagging, even though you're going to have that tag. But if push comes to shove, if somebody was to challenge that, you wouldn't be able to prove actual consent, because you're not giving your reader an option. So that consent is not voluntary, it is forced in order to receive the freebie. So I hope this made sense. I hope you found value in this Facebook Live. If you have any questions for me, you can always comment below, or you can send me a message or write to me directly on my Facebook page. I do have a Facebook group that you can join. It's called Make Your Blog Profitable. The link is on my Facebook page. It's an awesome group that I use as a support kind of option venue for all the bloggers out there. Go ahead and ask me your questions, send me emails, agree or disagree with me, and we'll see how it goes. I hope to hear from you. And for those of you who are members of Mom to Mompreneur Facebook group, Elna Kane, join me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in that group, because I'm going to cover GDPR in much more detail tomorrow, and we're going to do a lot of Q&A. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.